When Cherry Blossoms Whisper. Volume 2, Summer's Fragile Heart. Chapter 4, Typhoon Truths. The school's gymnasium converted for the night into a makeshift shelter during an unexpected typhoon. The wind howls outside and rain patters against the windows. Inside, the students are gathered in small groups, lounging on gym mats and making the best of the situation. The atmosphere is a mix of restlessness and camaraderie as everyone settles in for the night. The storm had come out of nowhere. One moment, the sky had been clear, and the next, the winds picked up, bringing dark clouds and heavy rain. By the time the principal made the call for the students to stay overnight at school, the typhoon had already begun to rage. Now, Haruto and his classmates were stuck in the gymnasium, waiting for the storm to pass. Haruto sat on the floor near the back of the gym, his back against the wall, observing the chaos unfolding around him. Students were chatting in small groups, playing cards, and some were even making the best of the situation by setting up an impromptu karaoke session. But despite the lighthearted mood, Haruto couldn't help but notice how restless Sakura seemed. She was sitting a few feet away, her eyes darting to the windows every now and then, clearly uncomfortable with the storm. It had been a long day. Haruto had already noticed that Sakura had been on edge lately. Ever since the cafe incident, she seemed to be carrying an invisible weight. Something was bothering her, but he hadn't had the chance to ask her about it. And now, with the typhoon trapping them at school overnight, it felt like the perfect opportunity to talk. He stood up slowly and made his way over to where she sat, her knees pulled to her chest as she stared out the window, lost in thought. "Sakura," Haruto said softly, sitting beside her. "You okay?" Sakura blinked, startled by his presence. She quickly composed herself, but Haruto could see the brief flicker of unease in her eyes. "Yeah, just not a fan of storms." Haruto nodded, but he wasn't buying it. He had seen how she had reacted earlier when the wind had started to howl, and the tightness in her posture told him there was more to it. Before he could press her further, Yui, of all people, approached with a mischievous grin plastered across her face. "Hey, why so serious, you too?" Yui teased, looking from Haruto to Sakura. "You know we're stuck here all night, right? Might as well have some fun." Sakura gave her a half-hearted smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I guess. Just not in the mood for games right now." Haruto could sense Sakura's unease, and for the first time in a while, he felt the urge to press her. But before he could speak, Yui snapped her fingers and grinned. "All right, I've got the perfect solution. How about a little game of truth or dare?" Yui said, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Nothing like a little chaos to pass the time. Haruto shot a look at Sakura, who hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "Fine. But only because we're stuck here anyway." Haruto didn't say anything, but he didn't exactly like the idea of playing a game that might push Sakura's boundaries. Still, Yui had already begun gathering a small crowd of students, and before long, they were all sitting in a circle on the gym floor, ready to start. Haruto had no idea that this game would become the catalyst for something far deeper. The game began innocently enough with silly dares and playful questions. But as it progressed, the atmosphere shifted. Haruto found himself drawn into the circle, his gaze meeting Sakura's every so often, wondering just how much longer they could keep up the charade of normalcy. When it was Sakura's turn, she was given a simple truth: "Tell us something about yourself that we don't know." There was a brief pause, and Haruto watched as Sakura's eyes flickered as though she were debating whether or not to speak. The storm outside raged louder, the howling wind filling the room, adding a layer of tension. Sakura let out a sigh and then, surprisingly, answered. "I used to write letters," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Letters to someone. To apologize." The confession hung in the air, and Haruto felt the sudden weight of her words. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make him wonder, who was this person? What had happened? Sakura quickly glanced around the circle, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "Next question," she mumbled, trying to brush it off. But Haruto couldn't help himself. He leaned forward, his voice soft but insistent. "Who did you write to?" Sakura's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment she seemed to freeze. Her lips parted as if she were about to say something, but then closed again. She glanced away, her gaze turning toward the storm outside, her expression unreadable. "I don't want to talk about it," she replied, her tone sharp, though there was an underlying sadness that made Haruto hesitate. Before he could respond, Yui interrupted with a dramatic gasp. "Oh, a mysterious past. Someone's got secrets." The group laughed, but Haruto noticed how Sakura's shoulders stiffened. She quickly stood up, brushing off the laughter as she headed toward the exit. "I'm going to get some air," she said quickly, not waiting for a response. Haruto stood up as well, a surge of frustration and concern rising in him. He could tell that whatever secret Sakura was hiding, it was something that haunted her. And for reasons he couldn't quite understand, he felt a strong urge to be the one to help her face it. Wait, Haruto called, walking toward the door, but Yui grabbed his arm. Let her go, Haruto, Yui said, her tone serious for once. She'll come back when she's ready. Haruto hesitated, then nodded. He knew Yui was right, but something about Sakura's pain pulled at him. He couldn't just ignore it. Thanks for watching our video. If you find this video interesting, then please subscribe our YouTube channel. If you're watching this video from TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, then follow our page for more contents like this.